I noted that you were the only one of the 6 candidates that attended all 9 hours of the city budget hearings. At least were sitting in the room all 9 hours last week. And one of the major discussions during the recent budget hearings was whether to continue our deficit spending in order to support city services and infrastructure costs, or to stop the deficit spending and perhaps lay off more city staff and directly increase some costs to citizens. The City Council and Mayor just passed a budget that, if you are elected, you're going to have to work with for the next fiscal year. Can you give us some of your thoughts on the budget that was just approved by the current City Council?
Well, I don't think anybody is happy with a $2 million deficit spending. I do think that they're playing show games with money, which really is very confusing to most people. You move it from here, you put it over there, and it's so that at the end of the day, like last year we started out, we budgeted, I guess, a $2 million deficit. We came in 1.7 under budget, but we're still $300,000 over revenue, which is still bad. Now, but we're not technically in the hole because we have reserves. Boy, I wish my budget at home could work that way. It doesn't. I would like to see us put the budget in simpler terms, like here's what we actually bring in, here's what goes out. I would also like to see that broken down by department. You know, I think that we could look at each department and have the people in those departments help us to figure out where money comes in. Every department has to have a revenue source, whether that is through grants, RTC money, fees they take in, whatever they are. They have to have a revenue source. They also have to have expenditures. And I think that we take a really hard look at each of those things, and it becomes something that I think we can still save a lot of money this year and possibly come in even way below what we've budgeted, and what, not only what we've budgeted, maybe we won't have a deficit at the end of the year. I think we have to continue to remind every department that, look, we're budgeting your future away, and that we have to look at it that way, and every dime we can save. I'm not in favor of laying off more people at this time. For every person we lay off, we could lose 5 or 6 people out of the city of Mesquite, which is, we're not only losing an employee that we may have to eventually retrain, we're also losing part of our tax base because that person may own a home, they don't have money to spend, they have children that are now going to maybe qualify for free or reduced lunches. I mean, it really does become a vicious cycle. And so I would like to see us really work hard to bring that budget down more and more all the time. And, it's already been done. So I think we just have to start from now and work forward to try to keep our costs down.
Okay. The city manager was released from his position last week. Councilman Smith mentioned in a follow-up email interview that he favored hiring a mayor's assistant rather than a city manager. Other people say that too much of the council and mayor authority and responsibilities were transferred to a non-elected official in the city manager's position. What are your thoughts on this subject?
I don't know if we would call it a mayor's assistant or mayor/council assistant, but I don't think it's a bad idea. I think that most of the departments really run themselves. I know there are some things that the city manager did as staying in touch with Carson City and some of those things. It's not like he wasn't doing anything. What I do think is that because of money and because of the fact that we want to give Mesquite back to the people, we want that to be where the groundswell is. And I think that the council and the mayor can much more effectively manage these things by allowing department heads to work with them and report possibly to, you could call it a mayor's assistant. I don't think that's exactly the right term, but some position that's like that, that would help to, just to facilitate things between the council mayor and the city staff, instead of somebody who was actually the boss.
Okay. It's apparent that the incoming mayor and council will be selecting a new permanent police chief to replace Chief Law, since Lieutenant Tanner is serving as interim chief. Should you be one of the council that's elected, what standards would you use to help select the new chief of police?
I've had some long talks with Troy Tanner, and we've already got some things in place about what's required, the master's degree and, 4-year degree and some of those kind of things. One of the things that speaks well to me is that I've talked to a lot of the officers, and they're all pretty happy with Troy being the interim chief. At this point, Troy is more than willing to stay interim chief for at least a year, understanding that that helps us save money, thereby probably saving him a couple of cops. And I highly respect that. Now, at some point, does he want to be chief? Well, he hasn't said, but I would assume so. I think that's something we would have to entertain when it comes along. And I do believe there's some rule that says we have to put out an RFQ and all those kind of things. But I always believe in promoting from within whenever possible.
Okay.